Buffalo Bills are kicking off the 2025 season with some major headlines, starting with a brutal blow to their defensive line. Defensive tackle Dwayne Carter is officially out for the year after suffering a torn Achilles during practice, a devastating injury for a player who was already trying to claw his way up a crowded depth chart. Now, any momentum he hoped to build this season is gone. Just like that. Surgery's already done, and he'll be on the shelf for the entire year. It's a nightmare scenario for a young player trying to prove he belongs. Now, let's back up for a second and remember how Dwayne Carter ended up in Buffalo. He was part of that strategic trade back move the Bills made with the Chiefs during the 2024 NFL Draft. That deal allowed them to draft wide receiver Keon Coleman and also netted them a third-rounder, which they used to grab Carter out of Duke. There was optimism around that pick. A defensive tackle with some juice and leadership qualities, a guy who had real potential to become a rotational piece. But his rookie campaign? Pretty forgettable. A wrist injury took him out for 5 weeks in the middle of the season, and when he came back, the opportunity just wasn't there. Buffalo had moved on. They brought in veteran depth, Jordan Phillips, Quentin Jefferson, guys with real NFL snaps under their belts. Carter was a healthy scratch for several games down the stretch, including all of the playoff matchups. He was on the roster, but never really in the mix. Coming into this season, the hope was that he could finally take a step forward. But the competition only got tougher. The Bills added Larry Ogunjobi in free agency and doubled down in the draft, selecting T.J. Sanders in the second round and Deone Walker in the fourth. Not only did they draft those guys, they traded up for both of them, which tells you everything you need to know about how serious they were about retooling the defensive front. By the end of the preseason, the writing was already on the wall for Carter. He was 6th on the depth chart behind Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, Ogunjobi, Walker, and Sanders. There was, however, a window of opportunity. With Ogunjobi suspended for the first 6 weeks of the season, Carter was projected to get some early snaps, at least in a limited backup role. But now, that's off the table. He's done for the year, and suddenly you're looking at a player entering his 3rd NFL season in 2026 with almost no tape and zero impact. A third-round pick, top 100 overall, who's done very little to justify that investment. Let's be honest here. From a roster standpoint, this isn't a devastating loss for Buffalo. If you had to rank players by their importance to the 2025 campaign, Dwayne Carter probably wouldn't have cracked the top 50. But from a team-building perspective, it's a blow. You want those third-rounders to contribute. You need them to. That's how you stay competitive while paying your stars. And so far, Carter hasn't given the Bills much to work with. And now the Bills are likely looking at Zion Logue or Jordan Phillips to fill that bottom-of-the-depth chart role, probably pulling one of them off the practice squad. Both of those guys, honestly, might be better fits for that early-season backup nose tackle role, especially Logue, who brings some power and run-stopping ability. Last week, when predicting inactives for Week 1, Carter was already on the list. So while his absence doesn't change the shape of the defensive line dramatically, it does further raise concerns about what kind of return the Bills are getting from their 2024 draft class beyond Keon Coleman. Zooming out a bit, the Bills also named their team captains for the 2025 season. And if you were hoping for a shakeup, something symbolic of a new era in leadership, well, not so fast. It's the same 2 names as last year, Josh Allen and Terrell Bernard. That's it. 2 captains. No offense to those guys. They're both clear locker room leaders, but it's still a bit surprising when you look at the team's history. This franchise has often gone with 5, 6, even 7 captains in the past. Last year, they cut it down to 2, and this year they're sticking with it. Now, does this mean there aren't other leaders in that locker room? Of course not. The Bills have a full leadership council in place. More voices, more accountability, more influence than just the 2 players wearing the C on their chest. But symbolically, the organization is sending a message. It's Allen and Bernard steering the ship officially. That's the core. That's who they're backing as the voices of this team. There's a lot of speculation leading up to this announcement. Inside the Bills Discord community, fans are tossing out predictions. Names like Dion Dawkins, Christian Benford, Reed Ferguson, even Khalil Shakir came up. Guys who've either been around or are clearly emerging as leaders in their position groups. Christian Benford, especially, seemed like a trendy pick. Between his presence on Hard Knocks and the way the Bills media team has been featuring him lately, it almost felt like they were building toward that kind of recognition. But when the dust settled, it was just the quarterback and the linebacker once again. And let's be real, it's hard to argue with those two. If you could only pick two, those are probably the right ones. Allen is the face of the franchise, and Bernard, quietly, has become the heartbeat of that defense. So no controversy here. But it's still interesting to see the Bills going with a leaner leadership model for the second year in a row. Whether that changes later in the year or evolves based on injuries or performance remains to be seen. Now, back to Dwayne Carter for a moment. His injury highlights something bigger happening within the Bills' defensive front. This group is undergoing a major transformation. Ed Oliver is the lone returning starter with any sense of long-term security. Daquan Jones is on an expiring deal. Larry Ogunjobi is also likely a one-year rental. The rest? All youth. All question marks. Sanders and Walker are talented, but they're rookies. Carter was supposed to be part of that young core, and now he's a giant unknown heading into a make-or-break year in 2026. And here's the tough truth. With little production and now 2 years largely lost, Carter might not even make it that far. The NFL moves quickly, especially for day 2 picks who aren't contributing. This team won't sit around waiting forever. If Sanders and Walker play well this season, and that's the hope, Carter could be squeezed out of the rotation before he even really gets going. Add in the fact that both Ogunjobi and Jones are over 30 and heading toward free agency, and this room could look completely different next year. And right now, Carter is trending toward being an afterthought in that rebuild. It's frustrating when you see picks not pan out, especially when they're part of a bigger strategic plan like that trade back with Kansas City. You want to be able to look back and say, yeah, we got Coleman and Carter. That move paid off. Right now, it's just the Keon Coleman show. And make no mistake, Coleman looks the part. He's been one of the more exciting pieces of the Bills' offense throughout camp. But it's never ideal when only one side of your draft trade is contributing. Injuries are always unfortunate. But in the NFL, they're also part of the brutal business. And for Dwayne Carter, the timing couldn't be worse. No role, no momentum, and now, no season. But as the Bills recalibrate and look to plug that gap, they've got to hope that the other pieces they brought in, specifically Sanders and Walker, can rise to the occasion. If those two hit, the defensive tackle position could become a long-term strength again. But if they don't, Buffalo could find itself scrambling to rebuild the interior of the defense yet again next offseason. So as the 2025 campaign begins, that defensive line is one of the biggest storylines to watch. Not because of star power, not because of marquee names, but because it's a position in transition with a mix of veterans on the way out and young players trying to prove they belong. Dwayne Carter was supposed to be part of that youth movement. Instead, he'll be watching from the sideline, hoping that 2026 gives him one more shot. While the Dwayne Carter news dominated the headlines, the Bills also made waves in a much quieter, but potentially more meaningful way by naming just 2 team captains again this season. Josh Allen and Terrell Bernard. That's it. No offense to the other leaders on this roster, and there are plenty, but the Bills are making a clear statement by sticking with the same 2-man captain structure from last year. It's a bold choice, one that moves away from tradition, and honestly, it raises some interesting questions about how the organization views leadership inside that locker room. Now, Josh Allen, no surprise there. He's the franchise, the leader of the offense, the face of the city. If he wasn't a captain, people would be calling for press conferences. And Terrell Bernard, while maybe not as high profile, has quietly become the voice of the defense. Last year, in his first full season as a starter, he played fast, physical, and smart. He earned that C. He's respected by teammates, respected by coaches, and has clearly stepped into a leadership vacuum left behind by guys like Tremaine Edmonds and Micah Hyde. Still, you have to wonder, why just 2? Is it about simplifying the leadership structure? Is it about making the message clearer? Or is it about trusting those 2 guys to be the conduit between the coaching staff and the locker room? Whatever the reason, this isn't an accident. This is a conscious, intentional decision, and it tells us that the Bills are keeping things tight at the top. Interestingly, there were a lot of candidates who could have joined them. Dion Dawkins has been a pillar on that offensive line for years. Reed Ferguson is one of the longest-tenured players on the team. Christian Benford has emerged as a tone setter in the secondary. You can make a case for all of them. You could even throw in names like Greg Rousseau or Khalil Shakir. Young guys, yes, but both are playing key roles on their side of the ball and have earned respect in the building. But instead of going deep, the Bills went with focus. And maybe that's the whole point. After all, this is a team that's been through a ton of turnover. New play callers, new coordinators, a fresh crop of rookies, a defensive overhaul. And with all that change, maybe simplicity is the stabilizing force. 2 captains, 2 voices. Keep it direct. Keep it steady. And speaking of stability, one of the more fascinating angles going into this season is the state of the Bills' edge rushers, specifically Greg Rousseau. There's been a ton of talk about whether Rousseau is better rushing from the left side or the right, and the data, surprisingly, doesn't give a clear answer. The assumption, based on the eye test, is that he's more effective coming off the left. That's where most of his big plays seem to happen. It's where he looks most comfortable setting the edge and using that massive wingspan to affect the quarterback. But the analytics? They're a little more balanced. In 2022, he actually had better pass rush productivity numbers when rushing from the right, though it was on far fewer snaps. In 2023, he flipped it, producing more from the left. And last year, it was almost even. Slight edge to the right, but not dramatically so. So maybe the bigger takeaway here isn't about which side he plays on. It's that Rousseau needs to be productive no matter where he lines up. With Von Miller now out of the picture and the rest of the DE room in flux, Rousseau needs to take the next step, not just as a solid starter, but as a player who can tilt the field. That's the kind of jump Buffalo needs to see from him in year 4. And look, it's not just about sacks. It's about pressure, disruption, getting quarterbacks off their spot, making life easier for your back 7. With the way the Bills secondary is currently constructed, and with some question marks around CB2, they're going to need that front 4 to bring heat. Fast, consistently. Rousseau is the key to that. If he can't do it, this defense might struggle to get off the field on 3rd down. Now, as if the roster questions weren't enough, there's also been a ton of chatter around former Bills who've found new homes, and which of them might actually shine in their new uniforms. Most of the talk centers around 2 guys. Amari Cooper, now back with the Raiders, and Rasul Douglas, who landed with the Dolphins. And while that's an interesting comparison in itself, don't forget Von Miller. He's joined the Commanders in what could be one of the most intriguing late-career moves we've seen in a while. Starting with Douglas in Miami, it's a perfect example of scheme and fit coming together. The Dolphins needed a corner badly. Their secondary was in rough shape, and Douglas fits their style well. He's not going to be asked to run man coverage all day or shadow number 1 receivers. What they need from him is simple. Hold the edge in a cover 2 shell, tackle, be physical, and force throws underneath. That's where Douglas thrives. He's not the most athletic corner, but he's smart, physical, and aggressive. In that scheme, he could have a quietly solid year. Then there's Amari Cooper, who returns to the team that originally drafted him. The Raiders are in a weird place. Their number 1 receiver is technically Jacoby Myers, who's requested a trade, and they've got a rookie tight end in Brock Bowers who will be a big part of the offense, but outside of that, there's a real vacuum for targets. Enter Cooper, a polished route runner with reliable hands and a veteran quarterback in Geno Smith. That's a good recipe for production. No one's expecting him to turn back the clock to his prime Cowboys days, but in that system, with that opportunity, Cooper could be a sneaky value pick. So as the Bills head into the 2025 season, they do so with a lot of moving parts. Some fresh faces, some hard choices, and one very clear identity shift. This isn't the same team we've seen over the last few years. It's younger. It's riskier. It's leaning on improving talent in key spots. And while the floor might be lower, the ceiling, it could be higher than we've seen in a while. Before we dive back in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest Buffalo Bills updates straight to your screen. And hey, don't hold back. Let us know your thoughts on today's news down in the comments. TREVON Diggs has rapidly become the talk of Buffalo, sending waves of excitement and speculation through the Bills fan base and the broader NFL community. Rumors circulating among insiders suggest that his arrival could redefine the team's defensive identity, potentially elevating them from playoff contenders to legitimate Super Bowl challengers. Fans in Buffalo have reportedly taken to social media to express their exhilaration, with some going so far as to claim that Diggs' presence alone guarantees a dominant secondary. Analysts are whispering about how his instinctual ball-hawking abilities might inspire a ripple effect across the roster, prompting cornerbacks and safeties to elevate their performance in practice and during games. There's talk that the coaching staff is already tailoring schemes to maximize Diggs' impact, potentially adjusting coverages and blitz packages to exploit his unique skill set. Speculation has also reached the front office, with rumors hinting at possible contract extensions or future moves influenced by the need to surround him with complementary talent. Conversations among former players and commentators have shifted, often focusing on his playmaking potential rather than the team's overall depth chart. There is a buzz suggesting that rival teams are reconsidering their offensive strategies when facing the Bills, anticipating that Diggs could be a game-changer in crucial situations, particularly in late-game defensive stands or pivotal turnovers. The collective sentiment is one of cautious optimism, but the sheer volume of chatter signals that TREVON Diggs is being viewed as a transformative presence whose influence might extend beyond the field, impacting fan engagement, media narratives, and even ticket sales. In Buffalo, the speculation surrounding TREVON Diggs' influence on the Bills' defensive dynamics has intensified to a fever pitch, with insiders and pundits alike suggesting that his instincts and athleticism could single-handedly alter game outcomes. Reports indicate that practices have taken on a new intensity since his arrival, with teammates reportedly inspired to elevate their coverage skills and reaction times to match Diggs' pace and awareness. Observers are murmuring about potential changes to the defensive schemes, hinting that coordinators may now be crafting plays specifically designed to leverage Diggs' aggressive ball-hawking tendencies, creating opportunities for interceptions and forced turnovers. Conversations on sports networks and fan forums suggest a rising narrative that Diggs' arrival might also pressure opposing quarterbacks into making mistakes, as they are forced to account for his presence on the field. There are unconfirmed whispers that rival teams may already be adjusting their offensive strategies when facing the Bills, considering safer passing options to mitigate the risk posed by Diggs. The chatter extends beyond the gridiron, with local businesses reportedly seeing an uptick in merchandise sales featuring his name and jersey number, fueling speculation that his marketability might rival his on-field impact. Experts suggest that Diggs' knack for reading plays and anticipating quarterback decisions could become a blueprint for how the Bills approach defensive planning, possibly influencing roster decisions and draft strategies for years to come. The collective narrative paints him not merely as a player, but as a catalyst capable of inspiring both teammates and fans, creating an atmosphere of anticipation that some believe could culminate in a historic season for Buffalo. Whispers within the NFL circles about TREVON Diggs have grown louder, with speculation mounting that his presence could reshape not only the Bills' defense, but also the broader perception of the franchise. Analysts have been reportedly debating whether Diggs' skill set could elevate Buffalo into a top-tier defensive team, with some suggesting that his ability to read opposing offenses and execute timely interceptions may force a reconsideration of the league's offensive hierarchies. Rumors hint at a subtle transformation in the locker room culture, with veteran players allegedly taking cues from Diggs' preparation and mental approach, potentially fostering a renewed sense of accountability and competitiveness. Conversations among fans suggest that his dynamic playing style is not only enhancing defensive performance, but also creating a new level of entertainment value, as spectators anticipate highlight reel plays that can shift momentum instantaneously. There are murmurs that coaches may be exploring creative alignment strategies and hybrid roles to maximize his coverage versatility, prompting speculation about future roster adjustments that could complement his aggressive style. Reports, though unverified, hint at a growing rivalry narrative, as opposing teams allegedly begin strategizing specifically to avoid DIGGS' disruptive presence, creating tension and anticipation around every matchup. Media outlets have reportedly picked up on the buzz, speculating that his impact could extend beyond statistics, shaping the storyline of the Bills' season and influencing public perception of the team's competitiveness. Among fans, social media threads are reportedly alive with debate about whether DIGGS could be the missing piece that propels Buffalo into championship contention, blending fantasy projections with real-world expectations. The underlying sentiment across these discussions emphasizes a mix of hope, intrigue, and cautious skepticism, suggesting that TREVON DIGGS is being perceived as a potentially transformative figure whose influence might ripple across every facet of the franchise. The narrative surrounding TREVON DIGGS has reportedly penetrated every corner of Buffalo, creating a palpable sense of anticipation that transcends standard player acquisitions. Rumors suggest that local sports bars and fan gatherings are abuzz with speculation about how his presence could impact key matchups, with some fans claiming that his arrival alone changes the psychological dynamics of the team. Analysts are reportedly debating whether DIGGS' propensity for forcing turnovers could lead to a strategic shift in how opposing offenses prepare for the Bills, creating a ripple effect that extends throughout the league. Whispers hint at potential leadership roles for DIGGS, with speculation that his influence might extend into mentoring younger cornerbacks or shaping the defensive mindset during critical games. Conversations among insiders suggest that coordinators might be experimenting with aggressive press techniques or safety rotations designed specifically to exploit DIGGS' instincts, fueling rumors that Buffalo's defensive strategy is evolving rapidly. That's a wrap for now. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay on top of all things Buffalo Bills, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what you think in the comments. See you in the next update.